If you're new here, welcome. I'm Tangi, the Feel Good Expert. You're about to watch a full lesson from my signature course, Think Like a Reader, where I teach human design enthusiasts how to think like a professional chart reader and apply human design with confidence. I created this curriculum after nearly a decade of reading charts and teaching students, specifically to address where people tend to get stuck when learning how to interpret this complex system. It was originally developed as a paid program, and I am now releasing it publicly, lesson by lesson, for free here on YouTube. If you are following along with the course, make sure you subscribe so you are notified as each weekly lesson drops. And now let's get into today's lesson. Hello, and welcome back. In this lesson, I am going to do some sample readings on the energy centers, and I'm going to just read these blind based on what I see and what we've learned in the last two lessons. I took the birth date, time, and location of a few of the current participants and plugged them in, but I don't know who they are. I don't have names or birth dates included. I'm just going to tell you what I see in each one. In this lesson specifically, these blind readings are going to be very specific to energy centers. And like I said, that's where I suggest that you start. When you are reading for clients, you're going to really want to have a good handle on strategy and authority, which is what we're going to cover next, right after definition. But being able to speak very clearly and articulately to the energy centers is what helps us move our energy from not self to self, move our energy from what is inconsistent to what is consistent, have awareness of what we've been taking for granted, and also hold an awareness what may be very distracting for us and may pull us into those bottomless pits and black holes of trying to prove something that cannot be proven. So this first one we're going to look at, we have 5 of the 9 energy centers defined. We have 3 that are undefined, and then we have 1 fully open center. So we've got definition here in a single definition. So all of these energy centers are talking to each other in a continuous flow. We have an undefined ego center, we have an undefined spleen, undefined ajna, and a fully open crown. And so when I'm speaking to this client, I'm going to speak to their definition and affirm the energy that those energy centers create one by one. And because those are all talking to each other in a continuous flow, I can say this all happens at once. And then when we talk about what is most distracting or what will pull this client into not self, we're going to look at the undefined centers, especially the fully open centers. So the fewer activations, the more it's going to distract them and pull them into themes of not self. But that doesn't mean open or undefined centers are bad or wrong. It simply means that we need to have awareness of when we're trying to make the inconsistent consistent. As soon as we can stop doing that, now we can exist on the entire spectrum of that energy. And now we can feel a little bit more playful about the themes of those centers. We can be surprised by what happens in those energy centers, and we can even expand our energy into those centers, especially when we are connecting with others, because others will feel our openness in our aura in the themes of those centers. So we become very, very wise in those centers, but we only become wise when we have awareness of what is most distracting to us. So when I'm talking to this client, I'm going to say that they have a strength in depth and thoroughness. And because of that, they are also emotional authority. Anyone who has the solar plexus defined is going to be an emotional authority being. That's how they make decisions. So when they make a decision, they need to make sure that there is going to be space for their depth and thoroughness. The easiest way to do that is to set the boundaries around time and the time that it takes you. It's going to take you time to put all of your motorized energy toward depth and thoroughness. And so you want to make sure that you ride your emotional wave before you fully commit to something. So again, solar plexus center is going to be a being that rides their emotional wave, that feels the highest highs and the lowest lows, and really has a lot of motorized energy to commit their full depth and thoroughness to opportunities that are aligned for them. And we would know what's aligned based on strategy, and that comes from type. We also see that they have this solar plexus center connected via channel to the root. And so this is a person that creates pressure. And so they create pressure and momentum and drive to move things forward. So you would say you have motorized energy for depth and thoroughness, and you're going to be moving things forward in very deep and thorough ways via that root energy. Your solar plexus works in a wave and your root works in a pulse. The root creates adrenalized energy. So you're not always going to be moving things forward, but you do have a fixed and consistent way of taking steps in a direction in a deep and thorough way with a defined root. As soon as your root pulse is on, that's when you create a lot of momentum, and you have to honor when your root pulse is off and be able to pull back your energy and wait. This client also has a defined sacral. And so with any sacral authority being is going to be a generator or manifesting generator. The strategy for managing their energy and protecting their aura is to wait to respond. And you're waiting to respond so that you can know from your gut response if this opportunity is going to bring satisfaction. You're wanting to put your energy in the direction of what is most satisfying. When you're not able to move your energy in deep and thorough ways towards what's most satisfying, it is likely that you get a feeling of frustration. With the defined G center in this client, they are consistently creating identity, direction, and purpose for themselves and for those that are closest to them. In my experience as a reader, I see that the G center gets conditioned more than most, to where we don't believe that our identity is correct or our purpose or our direction is correct. And so we try to hide it. And so someone with a defined G center, you would give permission and validation that your identity, even though it seems different, even though it might not line up with what is mainstream, is consistent for you. You do have things that you have consistently loved to do in life. You do have some consistency of knowing where you're going, and your identity, especially the way that others observe you, is consistent. And so trust yourself in your own identity, direction, and purpose. Lastly, they have a defined throat, and this is our center of manifestation. So we would remind them that the energy is flowing in a continuous flow, starting from the solar plexus to the throat. You're not following impulses. Okay, this is not where the energy starts, it's here. So you're responding with the sacral, you're making sure that sacral energy can be applied in a deep and thorough way to move things forward that aligns with who you are, and that is how you end up manifesting and expressing yourself in the most aligned manner and the most authentic manner for your specific design. Okay, so that is the definition here. What distracts us from our definition? When a generator or manifesting generator gets frustrated, typically they'll go right to the not self and they'll try to find their satisfaction there, and they won't. You'll give the reminder with these centers undefined that this is what will be distracting to you until you can get back into alignment with what is consistent. And so the most distracting center in this chart is going to be the crown, the pressure to know. I need to figure it out. I need to solve the mystery. I need to relieve this mental pressure. I need to get out of the doubt. I need to relieve the confusion. Who has the answer? Where can I find them? How can I get clarity on this? When is it going to finally feel clear in my mind? When am I finally going to have the answers? I just need to figure it out, right? And so this is pulling you into, these types of themes are pulling you into not self. And so when you're able to focus your energy back into what is consistent and defined, now the crown becomes this source of inspiration, and you give the crown permission to allow inspiration to come and go. You don't try to force clarity. You don't try to force inspiration. You don't try to force breakthrough moments or revelations. You just let it be as it is, and you remain open-minded. And so I would tell a client with a fully open crown, when the narratives come up of, I've got to get clarity, I've got to get the answer, who has the answer, where can I find them? This is not the space from which to take action. So as soon as anything along those lines comes up in your head, you go, cool, I hear you, and there's nothing to do. This is not the space from which I take action. The next center that's undefined is the ajna. So what do I think about what I know? I need to form an opinion. I need to form a judgment. I need to figure out what's right and wrong, what's good and bad about this. Having this undefined, the reminder is to remain open-minded and not fall into the trap of trying to create judgment on yourself or others, trying to find the good, the bad, the right or wrong. All of those are constructs of the mind. Your mind is just trying to create safety by figuring out what's right and what's wrong. But really, what is most correct is to follow the strategy and authority and the definition in the chart, and just to remain open-minded and inspired to anything else that comes through in life. We've also got an undefined spleen in this chart. And so the undefined spleen will absorb and amplify instinctive awareness, intuitive awareness, fear, and anxiety. The undefined spleen tends to be a little fearless because it doesn't know what to fear. One moment it fears everything, the next moment it fears nothing. And so the reminder with an undefined spleen is to not get overly attached to a future outcome or some narrative that has happened in the past. The reminder is to stay in this present moment. If you can come back into the awareness that you are good, safe, and healthy in the now, and there's nothing to do with or about your fears and anxieties, it's okay to let them exist. When you let them exist, now they can move. When you try to hold on to them or do something about them, now you feel very misaligned in that center. Lastly, we have the ego center. The ego center is a motor for willpower and motivation, which means when this person feels like they need to muster their willpower and motivation to prove something, they will find that the energy is not there to back it up. So we'll see the undefined ego center many, many times committing to things and making promises that they don't have the energy to back up. So the message for the undefined ego center is that there's nothing to prove, that you have inherent value and worthiness. And anytime you feel like you need to do extra or be extra in a relationship or in life so that others will validate you or so that others will see your worth, that is a recipe for not self, for the undefined ego. You need to find yourself in relationships and environments where you feel like you have nothing to prove and you can just show up as your most authentic self. Because again, the not self theme narrative of this center is I need to be the best. I need to prove that I'm the best. I need to go out of my way. I need to muster up all of my willpower and motivation so that you'll see me and you'll recognize my worthiness from the outside in. And we begin to learn through lived experience and through getting out of conditioning. That's a recipe for disaster, and that your worthiness comes from the inside out instead of the other way around. So getting all of the money, getting the appearance that you want, right? Getting the cars, getting the houses, all of the material possessions that the ego center will make you crave. You'll feel like you need safety for the tribe. All of that is just for fun. You're allowed to be surprised by that. You're allowed to be playful in that energy. And as soon as you feel like you need something in order to prove something to someone else, that is not self for the open or undefined ego center.
Quick note before we continue, if you are watching this and realizing you want to go deeper or move faster, this entire course is already available inside my Chart Readers Hub, along with live calls, past masterclass replays, and an active reader community. You'll find the link in the description below.
This next chart here has two fully open centers, okay? So that distracting energy becomes a little bit split and they kind of piggyback off of each other. They go in a little bit of a loop. And this chart is also a wide split, meaning it takes an entire channel to connect. It takes at least an entire channel to connect the energy centers. And so when you describe the themes of these energy centers to this client, the ones that are defined, you'll describe them in two different groupings, right? Not all at once. So you've got this motorized energy of response in order to move things forward, right? So these two are talking to each other, and then these two are separate. You're also able to manifest things into your experience based on your perspective shifts. And so this person will constantly be asking the question, why aren't my perspective shifts manifesting in my physical body, in my energy? Why aren't the thoughts in my head actually moving real things forward in my life? It's because it's a split definition. You've got these two different voices in your system. You have two different things to offer, and you don't typically offer both of them at the same time. So there is a bit of duality to the energy. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's not good. It's not bad. It is how it is. And as soon as you have the awareness of that, you begin to see it as a strength. And you say, yeah, when I'm responding to something and I'm excited, I'm enthusiastic, things move forward. I feel like moving the pressure. I feel like moving the energy, and I'm able to break through perceived blocks, right? I'm able to turn chaos into order using my sacral energy. But when I'm in my mind and I'm wanting to create new experiences and I'm wanting to manifest via my perspectives, that doesn't always connect to what my body wants to do. And that's okay. What's happening in my mind and my throat is actually for the other. I'm helping others manifest perspective shifts. I'm helping others see things differently and get new points of view via my energy, and it doesn't actually have to connect. I have these two different strengths in my system. Looking at the undefined and open centers, like I said, we have two fully open centers. So I talked about the fully open crown already, this pressure to know, looking for inspiration, trying to solve the mystery, trying to relieve the confusion and the doubt in a bit of an incessant loop. The emotional center will tell you the story that what you're offering, who you are, what you're doing is not enough. It's not deep enough. It's not thorough enough. I need to do more. I need to stay longer. I need to get a hold on this. I need to control these emotions. And so the narrative is going to become, how do I figure out how to control emotions? How do I figure out how to deal with other people? How do I figure out how to deal with contrast? How do I figure out how to be more deep and thorough? Where can I find the energy for depth and thoroughness? And that is not self. Again, when you have a fully open center, you're open to the entire spectrum. And because you've lived that pattern of not self so long, you have the potential to become very wise in those energy centers. And so as soon as someone with a fully open solar plexus has the ability to say authentically, it's enough. Who I am is enough. What I offer is enough. I don't need to be more deep. I don't need to be more thorough. I don't need to stay longer. I don't need to figure out these emotions. Emotions are unpredictable. They come and go, and I allow them to. And I don't try to predict or control. That's when you become wise in that energy center. The other energy centers that are undefined, again, we have the ego center, which we just talked about. We have the spleen also, which we just talked about, and then an undefined G center. So an undefined G center will put this imbalanced pressure on figuring out where all of this is going. On everything all of the time. So in relationships, where is this going? In your career, where is this going? In your identity, where is this going? How can I get others to love me? Who will love me? How will I find them? Maybe if I find who I'm going to love, they'll give me identity and they'll give me direction. I can latch on to theirs. And as a reminder, any undefined center, the wisdom is in the surprise. The wisdom is in the detachment. The wisdom is in the playfulness. I personally have an undefined G center as well. So being able to change my wardrobe as often as I want to, being able to change my identity as often as I want to, changing my hair, changing my appearance as often as I like, that's playful energy. When I change my hair or appearance in order to gain love, in order to gain affection, in order for others to maybe see me and give me direction or give me a path, that's not self. And so you can kind of begin to see the dynamic there, the duality in every energy center. It's all available to everyone all of the time. The question in each chart is only whether it's consistent or inconsistent for that person. So with an undefined G center, there is inconsistency in direction and identity and purpose, and that is not a bad thing. That is not a wrong thing. That's a surprising thing. That's a playful thing that allows that person to continually evolve and shift on their path. This next one here has a split again. Okay, so we talked about this split where the ajna and the throat are connected. And now this other split is the sacral to G center connection. And so this person would have awareness that I am most on my path. I am most aligned with who I really am when I am responding to life. When I'm waiting to respond and I'm putting my energy where it's most satisfying, that's when I'm going to be most aligned with my identity, my path, and my purpose. Okay, that's how those two talk to each other. And we just discussed how the ajna and the throat express themselves. And so this person is also going to be creating perspective shifts via the way that they look at the world, via the way that they see the world differently. That's what manifests a very interesting experience for them. This is a small split, so one channel will bridge the split for this individual. So we've talked about the undefined and open crown, the undefined and open solar plexus. We've also talked about the ego and the spleen. This chart is different because it has a undefined root. And so the undefined root is a pressure and a motor center. That means it will absorb and amplify stress and pressure from the outside without having a fixed and consistent way of dealing with stress and pressure. So the message for the undefined root is that maybe you're not designed for timelines, for deadlines, for time pressure, and for stress. Maybe you're designed to be a little bit more fluid and hold the open space for the ability to respond. And so what I would advise someone with an undefined root as well as an undefined crown is you're never designed to make a decision under pressure. When pressure is available and you have it in your awareness, that is really a big signpost that there is nothing for you to do. Pressure is not the space from which to take action, particularly in this chart, because of both pressure centers being undefined. And so the reminder is when pressure and stress is here, there is nothing for me to do. Really, the best thing that I can do is whatever it takes for me to decompress. But I won't need to perform or act on these deadlines or put even more pressure on myself to get out of modes of procrastination or even create narratives around procrastination. Procrastination really doesn't exist for a defined root or an undefined root. A defined root will show up when the energy is there, and an undefined root really won't know how to handle stress and pressure in any fixed and consistent way. So finding yourself in environments and in relationships that allow you to be a little bit more fluid with the way that you interact with time and pressure and stress, and also finding yourself in environments that help you gain some footing or some grounding. So like literally putting your feet in grass or dirt, being in sunshine, going for walks, decompressing that system, but in a more fluid and easy way, a way that simply reminds you that you're in a physical body. That's what I would suggest for an undefined root. Lastly, we have a single channel being, meaning we have just two defined centers and one channel that defines those centers. So this channel is going to end up being a big theme for that person. And because this channel is defining these two centers are also a big theme for this individual, meaning the way that I express my emotions, the way that the impact that I have when I express my emotions, how I share and communicate in a graceful way what I'm feeling and my depth of contrast and my depth and thoroughness. They're going to manifest in a deep and thorough way. They're going to express themselves in a deep and thorough way. And all of the other energy centers are defined. So we have one that we haven't discussed thus far as an undefined center, and that is going to be an undefined sacral. This is a manifestor type because we have a motor defined to the throat. And so a manifestor with an undefined sacral may be pulled into narratives around productivity and creativity. I'm not creative enough, right? My emotions don't matter, and my depth of contrast and feeling doesn't matter because I'm not creative and productive. I'm not producing what I need to produce. I'm not creating what I need to create. I need to be more productive. And they end up placing a lot of their value on their productivity and getting stuck in that loop instead of being able to follow their impulses and inform. So the message for anyone, manifestor, reflector, or projector with an undefined sacral is do not place your value on your productivity. That is not what you're here to do. When a manifestor in particular gets stuck in modes of productivity and what can I produce in a consistent way, they miss their impulses. When a projector gets stuck in modes of productivity, they end up not being able to help others be very efficient in the way that they produce, efficient and discerning in how they produce and what they create. So projectors, manifestors, and also reflectors, never place your value on your productivity. Obviously, a reflector, that's just going to end up feeling very overwhelming with no defined motors. We've already covered all of the other undefined centers. The only difference here would be this fully open ego center. So just an extra emphasis on under promising and over delivering, really trying hard to prove themselves. This is where the biggest distraction would be in this whole chart with these two centers defined and this center fully open. I also have an undefined ego center, so it is any center that is open or undefined, you're going to exist on the entire spectrum. And so there are moments in my life where I have absolutely nothing to prove and it feels great and I feel very aligned. And then there are moments in my life where I feel like I have absolutely everything to prove and it's very hard because I will go out and I will seek external validation. I will try to prove myself by trying to muster all of my willpower and motivation. It simply isn't sustainable. So that's the message for any open ego center. Anything that requires you to muster up all of your willpower and motivation in order to prove something to someone else will not be sustainable in the long term, and it will create a lot of pressure on your heart, both physically and energetically. So this is my sample reading. Hopefully this was helpful in being able to read simply by knowing the energy centers. I think it's a great place to start. And I think it gives a lot of guidance and direction to your clients on how to understand their energy patterns, how to bring into awareness what works and what doesn't, how to put emphasis on what is consistent versus what isn't, and how to get out of not self narratives of trying to make the inconsistent consistent. So please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the comment box below. And yeah, the next lesson will be on definition, which I touched on a little bit here, meaning how the energy centers are talking to each other. We have single definition, split, triple split, quadruple split, and no definition in human design. So I'll go a little bit deeper into definition, and that will give you even more context for being able to read energy centers in the way that they communicate with each other. So see you very soon.
On the screen, you'll see the lessons I recommend watching next based on your learning path. If something in this lesson shifted the way you're thinking, I'd love to hear what stood out to you most. You can share that in the comments. Liking the video and subscribing helps this course continue reaching the people it's meant for, and the questions subscribers ask here often shape what I teach next. Lastly, if you want to study this work inside a live reader community, you'll find Chart Readers Hub is linked in the description.